All right, three, two, one. Uh, Hi, my name is Dr. Carrot Cake, or Josh, and
This is Taylor, Faintest Gem.
and this week we're going to be talking about the Darkin because Aatrox got released, and we're jumping on that bandwagon.
Well, yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, Taylor, let's talk about the giant gaps that were filled in with this lore release because they basically filled in a huge dark period, and it's boy, I have mixed feelings about it. So, like, before we get in, what did you think of it?
I mean, I didn't know as much about it before the Aatrox rework came out as you did, so reading about the Dark and stuff is kind of new to me.
All right. Well, so do you know the story of Shrima with like Azir's falling and Zerath and all that?
Yeah, shit got fucked. It just
Yeah,
exploded.
that's. You know what? Yeah, that I that's actually what they teach in the Sherman schools. Like the one school they actually have, they're like shit got fucked like 1,000 years ago. It's terrible. Everything sucks now. um, no, but they were so after Azir fell, there was still all those like I'm gonna call them monsters because they're ascended. It's like people like Azir and Nasus. Um, so we haven't gone over Streama yet, so I'm gonna keep it kind of vague on what happened with Azir and Nasus. But with both of them out of the picture, there were still a lot of these creatures that existed that I call them creatures. They're very complicated and that were going on, and they were basically at a loss. The void had been closed, and it had taken its toll on a lot of their minds. And with Azir gone, they basically were like, "Who's in charge now?" And you know, as gods do in almost every religion that believes in multiple gods, they started fighting. And it's described that it had gone on for 1,000 years, and uh, humans basically had to align themselves with a god, or they would just be killed on sight. So Shurima was basically in the dark period, and they started whispering almost like an insult. They no longer called them ascended; they called them Darkin, and uh, it was basically a very dark period in the time. So, in the short story Twilight of the Gods, we meet. I'm gonna massacre this name, Kazun. Uh, and he is like a panther jaguar creature that had lost an eye, and he has a I'm gonna call her a slave. She might not really be a slave, but she serves him, and her name is Maisha. And he is basically bringing. He's basically like, I'm tired of fighting. Like we've destroyed Shurima. Like all our brothers and sisters are killing each other. This is terrible. And he's basically explained how he's gone through several hundred servants and warriors and stuff, and Maisha kind of stands out, and you kind of get a feeling for how he feels about her. He actually cares about her a little and such, and it was. I actually apologize. Kazun is the city he lives in. His name is Ta Anari. Sorry, I just realized that I just did a quick skim of my notes, and I did not that did not sound good. I am a professional, I swear.
Yeah.
Um, so the point is, he Tanari brings all his brothers and sisters together, and they're all ascended like he is, and he's trying to bring back memories of what what they used to fight for, and there's conflicts are coming up, and their human soldiers are all around, and uh, his plan is either unite them to fix Shurima after Azir's death, uh, or basically kill anyone who opposes the peace at that point. And so there's this meeting of all the ascended, and bickering starts, and there's just to name some of the creatures that are there. There's twin crows. They're brother and sister, I believe, and they can see the future, and they basically are like, shit's not gonna go well. Well, like they said there's many possible outcomes, but shit's not gonna go well in most of the outcomes. And there's also a large bull-like creature that's pretty violent, and there's a tiger creature that seems to be good friends with Tanari. And he's trying to bring back these memories of like when they fought together, when they were good friends, and some of them are just outright dismissing him and stuff like that. And this eventually leads to a fight uh, between Tanari and one of his brothers, and Tanari kills his brother in a pretty violent way. He he kind of feels, I'm gonna call it the power of the Darkin, I guess, kind of take over, and he just kind of like he loses control and he just violently murders him. I believe he stabs him in the eye actually, and the minute that happens, like all the other soldiers, human soldiers and gods look towards the dead god's warriors and they just pull out their swords and they're like, we're gonna fucking massacre all these people now. And he's like, whoa, 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 everybody, we're supposed to be about peace. Well, he's like, chill, chill, chill. And the crows kind of point out that Mishka, I hope I'm saying her name right, because she's very important, is not to be trusted. They're like, she's the reason everything's going to go to shit. And Tanari's like, what do you mean? She's like human, like she doesn't matter because, you know, gods are always cocky, arrogant assholes. And so this is where it gets into theory. I'm like, well, I shouldn't say theory. It's like 99% confirmed. Mishka is the aspect of Twilight, aka she's Zoe before Zoe. You know, like yeah. So and during this whole meeting, Sivir's weapon was introduced by Tanari as like a symbol for people to unite behind, and it comes out the aspect of Twilight basically booby trapped it, I'm gonna say, and she turns Tanari back. She uses it to turn Tanari back to a human and then kill him, and then basically the humans are like, fuck these guys, and they just start killing all of they start killing all of they like a huge revolt happens. The Ascended are basically like now viewed as monsters. The aspect of war and the aspect of Twilight help the humans, and obviously I should have mentioned other aspects and other members of the Targon, like armies and stuff like that, help fight back against the Darkin and basically find a way to trap them within their weapons, which is where Rost is, it's where Varys was, and it's where Aatrox is in his sword. So that's the very basic outline. There's obviously a lot more. Like there's a whole explanation for why Sivir's weapons introduced. There's Nasus's role in these, like I'm gonna say like maybe hundreds of years is explained as to where he is during the Darkin Wars. That's what they call them. And obviously like it's a 25-minute read, so like I just barely skimmed it.
Yeah.
But I really would like people to go and read it because the riot workers did work really hard. I'm not sure how I feel about all of it, but they did work really hard, so I'm gonna keep some things vague. But that's the basic outline of like how the Darkin went from ascended into being viewed as monsters. They got the name Darkin. They're like, and it was the start of their downfall. And so that's the basic history of how things went.
It's gotta fucking suck to be a Darkin, right? Like literal god beings, and then you just you get fucked over.
I mean,
And then you become this thing that like I know they wrote the just somewhere in one of the bios or something that like because they sort of fuse with whoever picks up the weapon. So like literal god being, and then you're like stuck in a mortal body and like you yourself, but you're not. Sometimes you got 3 people in your brain.
Yeah. So that's actually funny because they I was thinking about that with Varys and with Rust, which you're gonna go into. But like, you're like, what if you get picked up by like a child, like a
Right?
3-year-old? Like a 3-year-old accidentally picks up Daddy's sword, and then he gets turned into Aatrox. Like, like oh
It's
shit.
gotta fucking suck. Like
Like daddy left the sword, died in battle, and this little kid walks over. He's like, I'm gonna be just like my dad. Picks up the sword, turns into a giant monster. Whoa! But no, I like what I always found really interesting was again, not to give too much away, but like they do like they make it very clear that the Ascended are assholes. Like they have no value of human
Oh
life. They're
yeah.
like, but like
They do the same thing to the aspects too. They kind of
yeah,
like
yeah,
they have their job, but other than that job, they don't give a shit.
yeah, that's true. Basically, gods are assholes. Who would have thought? um, but like they do try to make some of them sympathetic. Like they explain that when they eventually were able to, I put this in quotes, close the void. Um, they their minds were scarred, like they were really messed up, like the void took its toll on them, so maybe they're not all there anymore. uh but like at the same time, he's like, she like Mishka's like, you let like 10,000 people die in like the last 1,000 years, like what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, and you're like, oh, maybe they're not so sympathetic. Like it's like, it like, it's like every time you start to feel bad for them, they're just like throw it back your face. They let like 1,000 people die yesterday. Like
I mean, it's just 1,000 people. Imagine
my
how much
like
it's gotta suck to be a normal human in the League world.
yeah,
Just your
like
average
you're
run
just,
of the mill person. You got fucking aspects and Darkin.
I like the idea of like in Shurima just seems like it sucks the most. Like
Oh
it's got
yeah.
invaded by Noxus in the north, and then like you're kind of south, and you're like in a tiny village, and you just look up one day, and like a giant sand empire just rises from the ground, and you're just like, well, that's another Wednesday. Like,
Shit
well,
might just explode one day.
that's what they're praying. They're all
Oh.
praying at the altar. Please end their lives. They're like, I don't want it. Like a woman's pregnant. She's like, please kill me so I don't have to bring my child into this world. But like at one point he's explaining the story of like this great battle, and the other guy he's like imagine all the glory we brought, and the other guy's like, well, we brought 10,000 soldiers in, they all got wiped out, we were the only two to come back, and he's like, yes, but the glory, and he's like, there was no glory in that, we literally killed thousands of lives. And he's like, okay, maybe you don't see the glory in it, but I do. And it's like, no, he's like, no, you're kind of an asshole. But that is the basic explanation of how the Darkin started to fall. To put things in like very like simplest terms, basically Targon was like, oh shit, these guys are actually really strong. They're gonna destroy all of Runeterra if we continue to allow them to uh, go on. Like we have to stop them right here. So basically, the Twilight aspect of Twilight was like, here's how we do it, and that's why Aatrox shows such hatred towards Zoe. Um, let's get into the actual Darkin, because we have 3 confirmed Darkin, and I believe they actually said there might be a 4th one eventually coming, but don't take my word for that. I don't work at Riot yet. If
No,
there's any
I'm.
Riot, if there's any Riot listeners, I will send my application out.
No, I'm taking your word as law. Whatever you
Oh,
say, it is true.
oh, okay. So, the Kinku are the greatest.
All right, stay on track here.
all right. So who do you want to dive into first? Ross, Aatrox, Varus?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, let's go Varus. Actually, let's go Aatrox because we were doing Ionia, so we're gonna go work our way back to Ionia with
Okay.
Varus and Ross. So we're gonna do Aatrox. Aatrox, fun fact, Justicar Aatrox was actually what he was supposed to look like before he became corrupted. So, like, that's what I've seen a few people say on Reddit, and Reddit is the most trustworthy site.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So nothing on the internet is ever wrong. So, that is official lore now. But I mean, if that's true, that's really cool. But if we're going in, Aatrox was basically viewed as this great warrior who like he wasn't as prominent in some of the story, like the story, the 25-minute story. I don't actually think he made an appearance, which kind of confused me. I was kind of shocked that like none of the characters we know besides like I guess in a way Zoe made an appearance, but my
Yeah.
point is he didn't make an appearance, but he was viewed as a great warrior who people actually in a way feared. Like they're like, oh, like he was basically seen as like you go in and like Aatrox gets shit done. Like you ever see the movie where they send like the retired super soldiers up in the log cabin and the general comes up and is like, we need you for one last mission. That's Aatrox. Like Aatrox is in a log cabin up there. And when the Darkin things happen, he was just basically like, fuck it, yeah, I'll just go around and kill everyone. Why not? So he started massacring uh lots of people, as Darkin do, and when he was captured, he was captured, he was put in a sword. The reason I don't focus too much on his past is because I think his future goals are so much more interesting character wise. So he basically is living in hell. He hates being there. He hates being picked up, and he's like, basically, like when he gets picked up, he withers away the host slowly, and he like they'll die, and he's trapped back in the sword. So he used every host he could to try and find a way out, and then he realized there's no way out. This is my hell. Like this is for eternity. So um his new goal is that he's hoping that he can spread war like he did at one point, so that he can actually consume all of Runeterra in a war, kind of like the Rune Wars again, except he wants to literally destroy all life, because if he can destroy all life, then maybe his life can end too. So he's literally trying to commit suicide by murdering everyone he ever sees
That's so
ever.
sad. Poor guy.
Well, he's kind of an asshole. But like that like if we went to, I was reading over the Reddit Ask Me Anything for Aatrox, and when he alts, he fears all minions. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but when he alts, he gets bigger and he fears all minions. That is actually aesthetic. It's supposed to show that smaller, like the champions are viewed like very highly, like they're mighty warriors, they're legends and stuff like that. They're basically showing that minions are like average men, and so he creates great fear in the normal person. So Aatrox, like, so when he fears the minions, it's supposed to show how terrifying he is.
I mean,
And
if you saw Aatrox like walking down the street, you'd shit yourself, right? He's pretty scary
yeah,
looking.
yeah, I'd be pretty afraid. He's a little scary, you know. Listen, I try to chill in Iona. Well, maybe not. There's too dark in there too. There's no
You
basically
can't
Runeterra
escape.
sucks.
It does suck.
It's really cool, but if you think about things from like the average person's perspective, it's just terrible. Like you basically got to be like fucking getting good with like Gangplank or something, or Misfortune, and be like, please protect me. But yeah, so like I just think that the idea that he wants to create this giant world, like he wants to create a world war, another ruin war, and destroy all life so he can get like the rest that he's desired for so long. And I think that's a really interesting concept. Like he has to destroy all life, because if even if one person's alive, they can still pick up his sword and he can still live through them, which is
I think
it's
that
really
shows how much it sucks to be the Darkin. Like
yeah. I mean,
you do literally anything just to die so it stops.
in a way, it's like he's in isolation for hundreds of years until somebody just happens to pick him up. I think in one of his, like in his short story, he's trapped in the sword and somebody's being chased by bandits, and he's like, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. And the guy picks him up and he immediately just is like, yes, I'm free, and he just starts killing all the bandits. And it's like and it's like, but like, yeah, he's literally just like trapped for like hundreds of years until somebody's like, "Oh shit, a sword," and picks him up. It's basically he's going crazy, and it's like imagine being locked in a room for like hundreds of years. Like
Oh
he
yeah,
doesn't need to
like
eat, he doesn't need to drink. Like there's nothing he can do. He can't even jerk off.
okay, obviously the most important. Poor guy.
Yeah, like he's. Let's see how that joke goes over. Oh boy, this is where we sink or Taylor. This is where we sink or swim.
No, this is where you just turn into like a Rule 34 podcast.
No, no, please no. I have a little
You
respect.
gotta be flexible. Go where the
This,
viewers are.
this is where Riot's like, we don't endorse this podcast. We don't. Um, my career aspirations are just destroyed in one moment. But so yeah, Aatrox's entire story is kind of dark. It's like he's basically just begging for death. So I find he's kind of interesting because Varys and Rost have such different aspirations, but Aatrox, the thing that I find interesting is that Aatrox has been free for a while, where Varys is only recently freed, and Rost is still fighting for freedom, which leaves like if there is a fourth Darkin coming out, I'm kind of interested to see where they'll go with that one. Because will she be more Aatrox, where she's like, "Oh God, life is terrible," or she gonna be like, "Yes, finally free"? Like it's they have very different ideologies.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So like moving forward, let's go with Varys. Varys was a soldier who guarded a temple. I forget the exact temple, but it was just kind of like generic temple number 4. And I believe it was either bandits or invaders were attacked, and Varys decided that he was going to stay um and defend the temple as is his duty instead of go back and protect his family. So as you can imagine, his family's dead. um, but they did find Varys sitting around hundreds of bodies of the invaders with arrows sticking out of them, and then he was just kind of sitting there coldly staring off into the distance. And I guess their reaction upon seeing him was, "Yeah, sure, we'll make you an ascended." Um, so so they made him an ascendant, and he was basically viewed as like he was viewed as a protector, and I think he was one of the last Darkin to actually be entrapped, because they I believe a queen a queen was able to capture him, but she realized the power that he held, so she was like, I can control him. And so she picked up the bow after trapping him, and they knew of the effects at this point, that if you pick up a Darkin weapon, the Darkin's gonna possess you. So she knew what she was doing. So she's like, I can control him, and she basically used him to kind of further her own agenda, like to finish off the Darkin and kind of fight off enemies and stuff. But when she realized that, like, oh shit, he's about to take over, like my time's up, she traveled to the First Lands with some of her best mages and priests, and she's like, okay, you guys need to trap me at the bottom of this well. So they sent her down, and she was encased, and we're gonna pick up where the music video began, where the two archers are coming in after defending the temple, which has been built around Varys's resting ground, and they go in, and as you could see in the music video, they end up at some point, like Varys is freed, and he takes over, like kind of fuses together with them. I don't exactly know what happens, because you just kind of see him dragged off, but like
Yeah,
they're fused together.
I think it's left a little vague on what exactly happens. There's
But
uh
oh, sorry.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say I think it's just because what we're given was supposed to be kind of artsy and
Yeah,
like give you the feeling of it. We don't quite know exactly what happened.
yeah. But so like these two, to go into these two a bit, uh they were lovers, which I believe they call them. Oh shit, I can't remember. It's soul something. When we go over the two hunters themselves in the final Ionia podcast with Karma, Syndra, and these two, like the kind of like non-associated Ionian groups will. I'll explain more in detail, but they're basically lovers, and once they came out, one was injured in fighting off Noxians. Once it came out of the well, they were Varys now. And it's shown in the comic that their voices, they're using, to put it pretty simply, the power of love to kind of fight them off. It's a lot more than the power of love, because I know when I say that, that's gonna turn a lot of people off. They're gonna be like, oh, how like
Right? It's
cheesy and
so
generic.
gross.
Yeah, love sucks. Hate everybody you meet. Hate everybody. But like they're using their kind of force of will to try and fight him back. And there's this really touching scene in the comics where they kind of go back, like they're in control of the body for a bit, and they meet one of the hunters' mother, and they're like, she's like, "What are you?" And she's like, "Get back, beast!" And he's like, "No, no, no, it's us. We're trapped in here." And she's like, "Oh God, what's happened to my son?" And you get to see that entire scene play out, and it's a little heartbreaking, but basically it comes down to Varys is fighting for control of his body, but he's like enjoying life. He's like, we can, and the other two hunters are kind of trying to vie so that he doesn't go around, murdering everybody. But the interesting thing is, um, one of the hunters, the one who wasn't injured, uh, and dying, was like is angry. He's very angry at the Noxians, and Varys is like, yeah, we could kill a lot of Noxians if you just give me like 10 minutes in control. Like, just let me drive for like 1 mile and like let's see how things go. And like the guy who is injured and dying is like, no, like he's gonna kill everybody. He doesn't care about Noxians or Ionians. Like, you got to be smart here. And he's like, well, he's like, I'm really tired. I'm a little tired of driving. Like, maybe we just give Varys the wheel for like 10 minutes. And he's like, no, you idiot. But basically, he's using his anger towards Noxians, um, to kind of try and gain control. And I believe the last panel of the comic is them standing on a cliff looking over the ocean, and he's like, Varys is like, eventually I'm going to get control. Like, you're going to wither away. And the two are like, well, we have as much time as we can to try and stop you. And that's where Varys' story is left off. For now, I'm pretty sure they're going to update all the champions again at some point. So, you know, right now their story is that the two hunters are fighting off against Varys. So yeah, uh, like I was gonna say, um, what are your thoughts on Varys, just like from the Darkin standpoint? We'll get into hunters later, obviously, but like,
Like just the Darkin.
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like he's got a pretty good story. I'm not
um,
like super overwhelmed. Like I feel like Aatrox in general. I like his whole like motivation and stuff better.
yeah, I like Varys, because he did have that touching scene with the mother and the hunters,
Yeah.
but may I like Varys. I do. His old lore was that he was defending his land, and he embraced the power of the Darkin to. Oh, well, he wasn't a Darkin before; he was corrupted, but he embraced the power to protect his home, his family, and his home. So with the lore update, there was a lot of controversy, because they changed obviously a lot. Now he's two people and everything. Um, I don't know exactly how I feel about the two hunters basically using their love to kind of keep each other strong and fight back against it, because
Yeah, it's super cheesy.
Yeah, I understand where it comes from, and I'm usually like 95% of the time I completely am behind, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm a huge fan. This was one of the one times where I was like, I don't know quite how I feel. I'm not gonna say it's bad because I usually like to see how the entire story plays out.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
I'm the same way. I don't think it's bad. I just like, eh.
yeah, it's just it's definitely not bad, but I would like to see where it goes before I give like my full support to it. I'm hesitant, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Um, I might not have done it justice explaining it. And if the writer Varys ever wants to come on to explain what his thought process, I totally would love that. I'm really reaching out for.
You are kissing ass today.
I am. I love it. Uh, this listen, we gotta listen, Taylor. We have to grow, okay? Listen. Um, but on that note, I mean, like Varys, he's one of the few characters I'm hesitant about when talking about lore. But other than that, I mean, there's more to go into with him, obviously. But I'm going to wait for the after the Kinku and Order of Shadows ones. We will do the final Ionia and then move to Bilgewater. So we'll talk about them with the final Ionia. Um, but I guess that just leaves Rost at that point.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to say that
mhm.
these two are fucking idiots. Or the one. I guess I can't blame the one that was injured. But his man friend was a fucking idiot.
The
Like
one
he
who's like,
literally doomed them for a lifetime of like just hell.
I mean, yeah, but to be fair, I like, maybe he did though. I was gonna say he doesn't know about it, but maybe he did because why
well
would he
he did know because his whole thing he went to the well thinking that like whatever was in there could
save him?
whatever
Yeah,
magic was in there could save his lover.
that is true. I was like, wait, well, why would he brought him to the well? Okay, maybe he is an idiot.
He's a fucking idiot.
All right, um, selfish people, man. Just let him die. Just let him
Right?
die.
If that was me, I'd just be like, please let me die. Don't.
Wait. He's like starting to dunk him in the water. He's like, wait a second.
Just don't make it easier for the three of us. All right.
He's like, like, he puts his head in the water. He's like, wait a second. Do you even know what this is gonna do? It's like, well, no, I didn't think about that. You're
We'll
right.
find
Maybe
out soon.
kerploosh. So then that leaves Ross. So uh, in the lore, it kind of really I couldn't actually find Ross's Shuriman update. Like, I don't know what he did in Shurima, and I feel really bad because um like it's probably because I like looked on the Ross subreddit, I looked everywhere, and they said there was lore updates, but I couldn't find them. So if there is some, I would totally be happy to eventually do one just dedicated to Ross. But for now, I guess we're gonna have to focus more on his relationship with Cain. So basically, Ross is discovered when the Order of Shadows. Ross is first discovered by Noxians, who are like, "Oh shit, it's a powerful weapon," but everybody who keeps trying to pick it up, like, ends up dying or killing themselves. Like, it's terrible. So they're like transporting it, and the Order of Shadows is like, well, we can't let the Noxians have that weapon because we can't trust them. They're pieces of dog shit that need to be wiped from this earth. Um, that's a direct quote from Zed, actually. And so Ross gets discovered through the Order of Shadows and they're like, okay, Cain is my most promising student. I'm gonna send him and a couple others out to secure this weapon. And when Cain is able to get it, he is there with a friend of his, and he picks up the weapon, and immediately the corruption starts to take over, and Rost is like, oh, like, you're actually strong enough for me to like not kill right away. And he's like, this is cool. And Cain like starts fighting back because he doesn't want to be corrupted, and so that's why Cain is like half corrupted, because it's like the two wills are fighting. I like how, by the way, Cain can like keep Rost off, but two hunters can't. Like a teenage
Well,
boy can do it, but like
well, I
the
think
two.
that's they in his like lore and stuff. He's basically just like a natural at like fighting and that kind of stuff. I feel
Yeah,
he's one of those people that's like you look at him and you're like, all right, don't piss that guy off because he's fucking crazy.
okay. I mean, he does. Yeah, yeah, he is. I just find it funny that some bare like 19-year-old kid is able to like fight off Ross, but these two hunters are the worst.
Right? They suck. I know, right? It was trying to be like, oh, it's a beautiful, sweet story, but they fucking suck.
But no, Varys, I'm oh god, now I got confused Ross with Varys.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna get flamed when I post these to the subreddit. So Ross is then they're fighting, and I believe Cain kills the other scout who's with him, his friend, because he's like, Cain, you need to put the weapon down. Like he's like, make a smart choice today, Cain. Put the weapon down, and Cain's like, fuck that. And so he goes back to the Order of Shadows alone, and he basically wields Ross with the intention of Cain's intention is to one day to kill and replace Zed as the leader of the Order of Shadows. And if he's able to banish Rost, we get Shadow Assassin Cain, who is you see in his login screen was him kind of coming through the wall and killing Ash. He's basically going to become like even more powerful than Zed could be. And if Rost's intention is to overtake Cain and basically bring as much death and destruction as possible, but not for the same reason as Aatrox. He just likes to murder people. He's just a sadist. And his login screen was him literally bursting through Scion's chest and bringing his slice down on Darius. So neither option's great. But yeah, so at the moment there's the internal struggle between Rost and Varys, which you can actually see in game, which I always found very interesting. If Rost is able to take over, the scythe literally flies out of Cain's hand, stabs him in the stomach, and then corrupts him from the inside. If Cain wins, he actually banishes Rost from the weapon, and you see him turn into the like ultimate shadow assassin. So we're left there at Rost and Cain's internal struggle, and I'm mostly interested. I'm hoping with the Akali update that's coming out, we get to see more how the Kinku view Cain, because we saw how Cain got to view the Kinku, and we saw that. And I also want to see how I want to see more interactions between Rost and Varys now, because I think that's going to be super interesting. We got some with Aatrox and Varys and Aatrox and Rost, but I think Rost is honestly a super interesting character. He's very funny if you ever listen to his voice lines. He's super sadistic, and like there's such small details that are so good. Like if you become Rost, like, and you're getting like you kill, like maybe you get a double kill, he'll start breathing heavily, or if like he'll start like when you start chasing people down, he'll start breathing very heavily, like he's enjoying the thrill of the chase. He's sadistic. He loves it. Like he's like getting a sick thrill out of it. And it's like there's small details in Cain and Rost's creation, from almost everything, like back animations, everything they do is just really well done in Rost and Cain, and they're really one of the more interesting characters in League lore, I think. But that's my opinion. What's yours?
I really like. I'm picturing Ross is like sitting there waiting, right? He's like, someone's gonna pick this up. I'm gonna get to do some shit, and then you get fucking Cain comes along, and Ross is sitting there like, oh shit, like this guy's not gonna like just give up.
He's like, I'm finally gonna be free, and then Ross
Yeah.
like he gets control of the arm, and it's like shit.
Yeah, and Kane's like, no, no, bitch, this is my show, because
It's
he's
like,
he's very willing. He doesn't hesitate to be like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna pick up that weapon, and this is
I
mine. So poor
I
Ross just sitting there, probably sitting there like, well, fuck. Now I gotta actually like put up a fight and.
he's like he looks at Aatrox, who gets like takes control of anyone instantly. He's like, boy, that sure looks fun. He's looking at Varys. He's like, oh, you got two people? That's cool. But I actually also like their banter where they just openly hate each other. Ross is like, oh fucking, oh, he's like, I'm gonna kill you one day, and then Kane's like, no, I'm gonna kill you.
I really like it.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely the banter between the two. The small little details like the heavy breathing with Ross are like, Kane's Kane is I really want to go into Kane. I won't go too much, but he's shown to be super like he's actually super respectful towards his enemies in a way. Like he can be cocky and kind of an asshole, but like there's certain lines where he's super respectful, and his ambitions are clear, but he also seems to know the limit, his own limit at times, through smaller voice lines. And then Rost is just like, let's go, 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 let's murder all the people. He's like, let's walk into a village and kill all the children. Like, he's like Anakin Skywalker from episode 2, where he murdered all the Tusken Raiders. He's like that's how I want to picture Ross. He's like, I killed the women and the children too.
I mean, basically, he's like, let's fucking do this, and Kane's like holding him by the collar the whole time, like, no, no.
he's like, we'll kill, but we kill who I want to kill. But like, I mean, the Darkin, I mean, there was a huge gap. I'd say thousands of years of history filled in this patch, and now like we're kind of, I overall, it's nice to have the blank spots filled in, but making them ascended, making them, well, yeah, the fact that they're ascended who have been corrupted, I don't know how I feel overall. It's interesting because I do like that they're basically at this point with the lore overhaul, they're making all the champions connected in some form, which I really
Yeah.
like.
Well, what were they? They weren't ascended before, so were they just? Did it ever explain what they were?
I believe they were from another world.
Okay.
It was explained in the dark, and there was only 5 left. Varys, Ross, Aatrox, and 2 more. But I don't like, which I mean, it's again kind of up in the air for me. I guess I prefer it. I do like how they're trying to connect all the stories together.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely makes it feel like, because sometimes it feels like each like region is kind of in its own little bubble. Like you have Bilgewater over here, and Shreem over here, and like there's no interaction between the two. And I like that they're trying to bridge the gaps a little. So this is one world,
yeah,
not just
and
separate little bubbles.
And I know that some people are going to a lot of the major complaint that I saw was people like make the joke that, oh, just like whenever there was a couple of lore talks, and the joke was just make them an ascended. And I guess it's like people kind of weren't happy with it. I guess I'm more on the positive side. I understand the hesitation where it's coming from, but I also do like that now the Darkin are connected. They have a reason to be so angry. They have a reason to want to like kill everyone, because like other than the fact that they like seem to just calm down and want to murder everyone because they can, it's like Aatrox wants to die. Varys and Ross kind of just want to enjoy their freedom, and they're sadistic monsters who have basically been corrupted for thousands of years through their weapons. Like they've gone insane inside their weapons, and it's definitely I find more interesting, but I can also see the hesitation. So I'm interested to see where the story goes, but I definitely hold on one second. Sorry, an old friend came in. We could cut that, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not this though. I'm keeping this in.
Okay. So, yeah, it's definitely really interesting where um, uh, the, like, sorry, cut this too, because I'm trying to remember where it was.
No.
Um, no,
No. No.
no,
I do
come
the
on.
edit. You want it to be edited a certain way. You do it yourself.
I hate you. Um, but no, so, at the end of the day, it is. I can understand the hesitation, but I do have high hopes for where it's going. I think the writers, I know not everyone's a fan of the writers. I know there's a lot of heated debates sometimes with the lore, and I
Oh
know
yeah,
not,
because everyone's like has their own view of like what it should be, and then people get upset when it's not.
yeah, but I do have faith in the riot writers, and I'm very excited to see where they go with this. I'm very excited to see where they go with the rest of the updates that are coming with Nunu, Morgana, Kale, and various other. They said they're announcing two more in the next roadmap. I'm very excited to see where they go. So I do have faith that they do know what they're doing. They're paid to do this, and I really look forward to see where they take this Shrema Darkin story going forward. But yeah, that's just my overall opinion on everything. Like, anything you want to add?
I don't think so. Cause we're gonna go more in depth on a couple things when we do the when we talk about the other Ionia stuff. So
Yeah.
I will wait.
All right. So in that case, next week or 2 weeks from now, next week we'll do Order of Shadows, and then Kinku after Akali's release because I keep pushing it off because I keep thinking Akali's release was going to be sooner, but I don't want to do it and then have to do it in one the week after where it's like,
Yeah.
oh hey, yeah, and then we're gonna do
Forget
the
everything we said because it's all changed.
yeah, and then we're gonna do a we're gonna finish Ionia, and then I actually have some friends who we do that esports tournament up in Boston. We do that nationwide esports tournament. I'm going to actually invite a couple of them on, and we're going to talk about esports for 1 week, and then
Oh, that'll be fun.
yeah, and then we're going to talk about like what the experience was like and stuff like that. And then I'm going to try doing more esports related podcasts as well too in the future. We'll talk about like maybe the LCS and how things are going, and then we'll move to either Bilgewater or Piltover since they're a port city, and we're following the map.
Oh, you're gonna make me start doing like actual like homework and research and shit, aren't you? I'm gonna have to
uh,
watch all the LCS and
yeah, this
everything.
is not. Yeah,
Oh,
this is a. Yeah, I'm sorry. You got to do homework,
oh.
but all right, asshole. All right, but in that case, I guess we'll see you next week.